Have you ever wondered whether a single prayer you whispered, once barely remembering it, could rise again at the hour of someone's judgment? And have you ever asked yourself what becomes of the prayers that seemed too small, too weak, too late? Tonight, you will witness 3 extraordinary revelations, moments that Padre Pio once said, show how heaven counts differently than we do. What you are about to hear is not merely a story. It is a confrontation with the hidden power you may already have placed into God's hands without knowing it. Later that evening, long after the friars had retired and the stone corridors of San Giovanni Rotondo fell silent, Padre Pio remained in the small chapel. A single candle burned beside him. Its flame swayed in the draught, bending like a thin golden thread toward the tabernacle. He finished the rosary slowly, bead by bead, each click echoing like a footstep down a long hallway. The air trembled. He felt it before he saw anything, an unseen weight settling over the sanctuary, a pressure he recognized all too well. Something had shifted in the boundary between the visible and the invisible. The candle guttered, the shadows stretched, and then a figure appeared near the last pew, not fully formed, as though cut from smoke. It stood motionless, its edges fraying in the silence. Padre Pio lifted his head. Souls did not always come this quickly, not with this density of sorrow. The figure took a hesitant step, and the floorboards creaked, though it no longer had weight. A man, in his early 60s, work-worn hands, a jacket scorched in one place, as if fire had licked it moments before his death. His eyes darted like someone waking in a foreign room, clutching for memory. Padre Pio saw immediately what this meant. The man had died just moments earlier, sudden, violent, unprepared. The soul spoke without opening his lips. I didn't see it coming. His voice echoed inside the friar's mind, thin as wind through broken shutters. Shock still clung to him, the raw disbelief that death had already claimed him. Padre Pio's heart tightened. These were the souls that struggled most, the souls who had not yet admitted the truth. The chapel felt colder, as if the veil between worlds had thinned too quickly. The man staggered toward the sanctuary lamp, drawn on instinctively to its flame, but recoiled as if it were a blazing furnace. Padre Pio recognized the first tremor of judgment beginning to awaken in him, but the truth had not shown itself yet, and what waited behind it would upend everything the man believed about his life and about a single, forgotten prayer. And Padre Pio knew the unveiling was only beginning. The man's form flickered, as if the air itself resisted him. "This can't be real," he whispered in a tone cracked by fear. He clutched his chest, a gesture of habit rather than need. "I was just driving. The road was clear. I was planning to fix the fence tomorrow." Denial often clung like a shroud around freshly departed souls, but this man's resistance was fierce. He looked around as though searching for his own body, expecting to return to it like waking from sleep. Padre Pio rose slowly, his movement gentle, deliberate, the way one approaches a wounded animal. "My son," he murmured, "nothing is more real than what stands before God." His words struck the space between them like a bell. The man flinched, his outline wavered, light stretching from him like threads unraveling from an old garment. The chapel darkened, the air thickened. Then, without warning, visions erupted. Around him, a life review, silent at first, then roaring forward with the unstoppable force of truth. A tapestry of his life unfolded, woven with moments of tenderness, cruelty, indifference, sacrifice, forgotten generosity, silent anger. Scenes blinked like lanterns in a storm. His mother praying for him at dawn, his father's disappointment, his wife's quiet longing for his affection, his child waiting at the school gate long after dismissal. Every choice, every omission, 1,000 small rejections of grace he never realized he had made. The man staggered back as though struck. Stop, please, I wasn't as bad as this. Shows everyone struggles, everyone fails. Why am I being judged like this?" The panic rose in him like a flood. "You see not accusations," Padre Pio answered quietly. "You see the truth as God sees it. The light that reveals is the same light that heals, if you let it." But the man trembled, gripping at the visions as though trying to tear them down. He shook his head violently. "It's too late. I didn't repent. I didn't confess. I wasn't ready." His voice broke into a sound like cracking timber. Padre Pio felt the weight of the next revelation, gathering like a storm. He knew heaven would soon reveal something the man had long forgotten, something so small, so faint, it had nearly vanished from memory. But heaven forgets nothing. The chapel's light shifted, turning pale, almost lunar. The visions around the man dimmed until only one remained, an image so simple he almost overlooked it. A child's bedside, a mother kneeling beside him, a soft voice whispering, "Hail Mary, full of grace." And there he was, a small boy at the edge of sleep, repeating the prayer half-heartedly, barely forming the syllables. The grown man stared at the child version of himself, confused. This means nothing. I didn't even understand the prayer. I never said it again." But Padre Pio felt the tremor in the spiritual air. Something, immense, ancient, maternal, stirred behind that forgotten memory. He lowered his gaze. "My son, no prayer is lost, not even the weakest whisper." The man shook his head, refusing the truth. "One Hail Mary from childhood cannot help me now. I wasted my life. I ignored God. I mocked prayer. I sinned, without caring. That boy is long gone, his innocence gone with him." The light brightened suddenly, forming what looked like a thin bridge no wider than a thread of dawn connecting the child's prayer to the soul, now trembling before judgment. It pulsed once, twice, like a heartbeat. The man stumbled back. "What is that?" Padre Pio's voice was low, grave, yet trembling with awe. "It is mercy stored, grace preserved, a seed heaven kept until the hour it would be most needed." The soul writhed, torn between despair and desperate hope. His inner battle raged like fire inside glass. He wanted the mercy, yet loathed the truth of his wasted years. He longed for God, yet recoiled from the brightness of justice. "You might be asking yourself," Padre Pio said softly, as though speaking also to the unseen audience of human hearts who would one day hear this story, "why heaven would wait so long. Why a forgotten prayer would return at the moment of judgment." The man's face lifted, trembling. "Why?" Padre Pio drew a slow breath. "Because God waits for the tiniest opening." But the opening had not yet fully revealed its purpose. Then something extraordinary happened. The thin bridge of light brightened until the chapel seemed washed in gold. The man shielded his eyes, though no physical light could blind a soul. From the bridge emerged a small figure, a child no older than 7. He stepped forward with a gentle confidence, his face luminous yet familiar. The man gasped. "Is that me?" "No," Padre Pio whispered. "It is the grace of the prayer you once offered." The child, formed from the essence of that forgotten Hail Mary, looked up with trusting innocence. He carried no accusation, only intercession. He reached out, a tiny hand toward the man, and as he did, a new scene flickered into view. A woman in her final hours, lying in a dim hospital room, her breath shallow, her fear palpable. Around her bed swirled shadows of temptation, doubt, loneliness. And then soft, almost imperceptible a thread of light entered the room, falling upon her like a small blessing. Her breathing eased, her eyes calmed. She whispered a single prayer before she died. The soul watching this vision trembled. "Who is she?" "Someone who received grace through your childhood, Hail Mary," Padre Pio said. "Your prayer strengthened an angel, and that angel carried peace to a stranger when her hour came." The man covered his face. "I never knew." Padre Pio nodded. "Few ever do. This is heaven's economy. What you call forgotten, heaven calls seed." The child turned back toward the man. His hand remained, extended, not forcing, only offering, a gesture of hope in the midst of judgment. But this was only the first vignette of grace. 2 more waited in the depths of the man's life, 2 threads woven from the same forgotten prayer, and each would cut deeper than the last. The chapel darkened again. A second vision unfolded, this one colder, heavier, carrying the scent of smoke and damp concrete. A factory floor, harsh lights flickering, and a young man, nervous, ashamed, shoulders hunched, clutched a stolen tool inside his jacket. He glanced around, preparing to slip it into his bag. The guilt in his eyes was as raw as an unhealed wound. Suddenly a sound, a small whisper brushed past him. Not a voice, more like a breeze that carried intention. His hand hesitated, his breath caught. Something invisible pressed gently against his conscience. He put the tool back down, quietly, carefully, trembling. a choice, a turning, a moment that redirected the path of his soul. Padre Pio spoke softly. Your prayer strengthened the angel assigned to him. It gave him a fraction more clarity, a fraction more courage, and that fraction spared him years of sin. The man watching the vision felt something in him crack. I didn't know him. I never met him. How could my prayer reach him? Heaven is not limited by distance, Padre Pio answered, nor by time. A prayer uttered decades ago can be applied at a moment heaven chooses. God stands outside ours. The man pressed a trembling hand to his chest as though feeling something ignite inside him. So even my smallest good mattered more than you ever dared hope. But as the second vignette faded, the light dimmed again, and a sharp coldness spread through the chapel. Padre Pio inhaled, deeply, bracing himself. The third revelation, the most painful, was drawing near, a revelation that tied the man's prayer not to a stranger, but to someone whose absence had marked his entire life. Padre Pio lowered his eyes. There is one more grace you must see. And the man, shaking, whispered, I don't know if I can bear it, but heaven would show it nonetheless. A soft wind swept through the chapel, though no window was open. The visions gathered once more, forming a corridor of pale light. At the far end stood a woman, young, heartbroken, kneeling in a narrow church pew. She wept silently, her shoulders shaking, and beside her a small empty cradle draped with a white cloth. The man's breath caught. My sister, his voice cracked into a sob. This was the day she lost her child. Padre Pio closed his eyes in sorrow. The woman's grief was crushing. She could not form words. She only pressed her forehead against folded hands. Shadows of despair coiled around her, whispering lies that her life had no meaning, that God had abandoned her, that suffering was punishment. But then a spark, a tiny, gentle spark of grace descended like a falling star. It touched her heart with warmth so delicate it was almost imperceptible. She inhaled. Her sobs slowed, and in her weakness she whispered, Hail Mary, help me. The man collapsed to his knees. No, no, don't show me this. I was cruel to her. I told her faith was pointless. I mocked her for praying. I abandoned her when she needed me. Padre Pio knelt beside him, and heaven sent her strength. Through the prayer you offered as a child, the soul broke open. Every wall, every excuse, every denial. His remorse poured forth like a flood. He wept not only for his sins, but for the grace he never knew he had been part of. Love and loss twisted inside him until he felt he might shatter under the weight. This, Padre Pio whispered, is the judgment that purifies, not to condemn, but to heal. The man raised his face, tears streaming through the light. If even one prayer mattered, then maybe I am not lost. But the climax of revelation had one final step. The forgotten Hail Mary had preserved its greatest grace for last, and heaven was ready to pour it out. The small child Grace embodied stepped forward again. His hand still reached out, steady, unafraid. Light radiated from him, softer now, as if shaped for a wounded heart. Padre Pio felt the entire chapel hush, as though every unseen angel bowed in anticipation. The man lifted trembling eyes to the child. Why? Why would God let one weak prayer stand for me now, after everything I wasted? Padre Pio answered with a line he had spoken countless times to souls on the brink of despair. It is never too late to return to the Father. One sincere turning of the heart outweighs a lifetime of distance. The child placed his hand on the man's chest. A warmth surged through him, a warmth like being remembered, forgiven, held. His form, once flickering, grew more stable. The darkness that clung to his edges receded, his fear unraveled, thread by painful thread. Then another light appeared, brighter, higher. A bridge no longer thin like dawn, but wide as a river of gold unfolded across the chapel. On the far side stood figures radiant with peace, souls who had been touched by his forgotten prayer. The woman from the hospital, the young man from the factory, his sister's lost child, glowing like a spark, rising toward heaven. They did not call him, they did not force him, they simply waited with hope. Padre Pio spoke gently. Your journey of purification will not be easy. The fire will cleanse, not destroy. But mercy has claimed you. Walk toward it. The man nodded slowly, tears still falling. I want God, even if it hurts." The child smiled, the same innocent smile the man once had, and walked with him toward the bridge of light. As they stepped into radiance, the chapel dimmed again, returning to its quiet stillness. Padre Pio lowered his head, whispering, "One, Hail Mary," offered with the slightest sincerity, "can move mountains in eternity." The story seemed finished, but one truth remained for the living who would hear it. Padre Pio remained alone in the chapel, the sanctuary lamp flickering with a soft, steady glow. The air felt lighter now, yet charged with the lingering presence of mercy. He returned to his pew and knelt, lifting the rosary once more. His fingers moved slowly over the beads, as though carrying the weight of every forgotten prayer ever whispered on earth. He closed his eyes. "Mother," he murmured, "take every small prayer, save every trembling yes, store every whisper of hope, not one should fall away." And then he spoke a final truth, one meant not for the soul who had departed, but for the countless souls still living, still doubting, still overlooking the power in their own hands. "A single Hail Mary," he said softly, "can become a bridge across eternity." You might be asking yourself, does this mean even the weakest prayer I've ever said can matter? Can something I said, half asleep as a child, still rise before God? Can I change the fate of someone I love, or someone I will never meet? Yes, heaven wastes nothing. Grace waits patiently. And Mary, the keeper of prayers, never loses even one. So pause now. Close your eyes. Offer one Hail Mary. Not perfectly, not poetically, just sincerely. Give heaven something to work with. Because the smallest prayer may become someone's salvation. And the consolation that lingers is this: nothing given to God, however small, is ever forgotten.